The Rubik's Cube is like a 1970s, 80s things. I'm somewhat familiar with it. Yo, these hairstyles are just different, man. Like, I know that's just someone's mum, man. That was what prime Michael Jackson, man, before, you know, all the documentaries started to come out, you know? Okay, I've only just understood what a cassette tape is, man, because that stuff was confusing me. So, because if you grew up in the 1980s, you guys should remember this. Guys, look, it's your fellow Gen Z Brit with a very curious mind back again to go back into the past and check out exactly what you guys are getting up to. Look, I've done quite a few of these deep dives, and the more I uncover a lot of these things, it's like still to this day, I'm always finding things that just shock me. So I wonder what Recollection Road, which is what this video is, the channel the video is coming from, are gonna say about this. I feel like the 1970s and 80s, I feel like it was pretty much the same things that were going on, but I could be wrong. I probably am wrong, but we'll see. Guys, of course, like, if you love how I'm doing these kind of flashbacks to the past, being a Gen Z or giving you a different perspective, then make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel, because I know you guys want to stick around, and turn on the notification so you don't miss one of these videos, guys. And of course, look, links in the description to my Patreon, where you can get exclusive bonus content as well as early access and access to all those videos that don't get blocked on YouTube. They'll all be done on the Patreon. I recently did the full album review of Prince's Purple Rain album and a full album review of his Sign of the Times album. So if any of you guys are lovers of Prince, then definitely check that one out. And I also recently showed my sister Prince as well. So if you guys are interested in that, you know what to do. Check the description. It's lit over there. You're not going to want to miss out. Guys, with that being said, let's get straight into this video. Let's go.
If you were a kid in the 1980s, you probably have fond memories of growing up during that time. You often spent afternoons at friends' houses, maybe even jumping on their trampoline or watching MTV. Okay. You also kept yourself busy by making
1980s, that's when you guys started, like, that's the MTV stuff started coming on. That's interesting. Okay.
Mixtapes and binge watching rented movies from Blockbuster.
I'm dead.
If this sounds like your childhood, then you will definitely relate to these 1980s memories.
Okay.
Do you remember being beyond excited to get up on Saturday mornings? The excitement of running to the TV and switching on Saturday morning cartoons and knowing you didn't have to go to school was a great feeling.
Wow.
Some of your favorite shows may have been Thundercats, He-Man, the Care Bears, or maybe even Pee-wee's Playhouse or the Smurfs.
Oh, wow.
You watched all of this while eating a big bowl of your...
I didn't even realize Smurfs was a cartoon, you know. I've only seen Smurfs as a movie. But some of these are actually not as, like, foreign to me. Like, I feel like the 1980s where things start making sense to me a little bit. 1970s and everything before that, everything is just confusing to me, bro.
Cats, He-Man, the Care Bears, or maybe even Pee-wee's Playhouse or the Smurfs. You watched all of this while eating a big bowl of your favorite cereal.
Right.
And in those days, it was all about the sugary cereals. Captain Crunch, Fruity Pebbles, Cocoa Puffs, and Cookie Crisp were just a few.
I can imagine, man. There's a lot. Okay. So look, you guys let me know if you recognize any of these flavors, man. I mean these cereals, because Cocoa Puffs I recognize, and that's about it. I'm looking around here. I don't like all of this Blueberry, Tricks, Smacks. Like, yeah, I'm clueless. I've never seen those before.
Your school days may be best remembered for playing the Oregon Trail, where you died from dysentery, lost cattle, and broke plenty of wagon wheels.
Okay.
When it was first introduced, this video game was meant to be educational, teaching kids about the grim realities in the American West during the 1800s. But it became so much more. When the teacher announced that it was time to play the Oregon Trail on the school computers, it felt like a gift from the heavens.
That looks like an interesting game. Obviously, games back then were very much like 2D looking. At least this one is probably the earliest game that I've seen that actually looks like decent from what I've seen. Like, I'm thinking of Atari, I'm thinking of those kinds of games. But this one seems to be the most advanced one that I've seen from the 1980s.
Computers, it felt like a gift from the heavens.
Okay.
During the 80s, every young girl wanted a Cabbage Patch Kid. The adoptable dolls were hard to come by, especially around Christmas.
Really?
But once you got one, you were proud to show it off. If you weren't able to get one of those pricey dolls, you may have settled for a strawberry shortcake or a rainbow bright.
Okay.
On the other hand, all the boys wanted a He-Man Masters of the Universe figure. In fact, they wanted to own all of the He-Man action figures, along with Castle Grayskull.
Yeah, I've no clue what that is, man.
The Rubik's Cube has been confounding kids and adults alike since its invention in 1974.
Wow.
But it was in its heyday in the early 1980s.
Really?
In fact, one of the best-selling books of 1981 was The Simple Solution to Rubik's Cube,
wow.
written by James Norse.
So the Rubik's Cube is like a 1970s, 80s thing. I'm somewhat familiar with it. Obviously, I've had a Rubik's Cube before, but like I feel like physical games, like you only really play it, at least when I was young, I only really played the Rubik's Cube when I was young. And then as soon as like you get to like grade 4 even, you know what I'm saying, you don't really care as much about the physical ones. You want to kind of more play with either your sporty, or you want to kind of go on your phone and play games when you can get them before you turn 18, because your parents, they're all like 18 rated, so you can't get them, but you try to at least.
Cube, written by James Norse. If the Rubik's Cube didn't do it for you, then maybe you were one of the lucky ones to get the first Nintendo Entertainment System on your block. This was the era that established classics like Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, and so many more.
Okay.
And if you had trouble getting a game to load, all you had to do was blow the dust out of the cartridge, and it seemed to work every time.
Wow. Okay.
Friday nights were, for many, a Blockbuster night. Stepping into that brightly lit Blockbuster store and seeing an endless selection of movies was a true thrill. It wasn't uncommon to leave with a stack of movies that would last you all weekend, and you could even get some popcorn or candy to go along with it.
That's different. Yeah, like I've you know, that's something I've never seen nor experienced. I don't think like I've ever bought a physical CD with a movie in it, like myself personally. By the time I started really getting into movies, it was all digital. Like I would just go online or just see it on the screen.
Maybe you were one of the ones that saved up your quarters all week so that you could head over to the arcade to play the newest games and hang out with friends. You tried your best to make it on the leaderboard whenever you played Pac-Man, Space Invaders, Asteroids, or Donkey Kong. During the 1980s, these dimly lit buildings would be packed with people, plunking quarters into those magical machines for hours on end.
Crazy.
Who didn't own a few Garbage Pail Kids during the 1980s? These funny cards became a big hit because they depicted children that looked like Cabbage Patch Kids, but they had creatively rhyming names. From the grossest to the scariest, Garbage Pail Kids were always good for a laugh. But the gum that came inside the packs was some of the hardest, most stale gum you may have ever chewed on.
Really? That sounds mad, you know? That sounds mad.
Growing up in the 80s, you may have also...
Garbage Pail, what's he calling it? Garbage Pail Kids. It seems like the whole Garbage Kids, like, thing, it seems to have been a popular thing of the 80s. I personally don't have a clue. I don't know about that. Like, if you ask me about Garbage Pail Kids or Garbage Pack Kids and what's it? Literally just said it. Garbage Patch Kids, right? I would not be able to tell you anything. I wouldn't know what it is. It's my first time hearing.
Growing up in the 80s, you may have also been an avid reader. Book series like The Babysitter's Club, Sweet Valley High, or Choose Your Own Adventure were some of the very best the decade had to offer.
Wow.
Judy Blume and Beverly Cleary books became must-reads, and a big incentive for reading all these books was a free pizza from the Pizza Hut Book It campaign.
Really? Okay, that's cool. I feel like now it's Harry Potter and JFK.
It seemed like every kid growing up in the 1980s was a huge wrestling fan.
Wow.
One of the true forces behind the popularity of the sport was Hulk Hogan. Everyone wanted to be a part of Hulkamania, and the Hulkster had this generation of kids believing that anything was possible through the power of training, prayers, and vitamins.
Wow.
If Hogan wasn't your guy, you may have been rooting for the Macho Man Randy Savage and the beautiful Miss Elizabeth.
That's interesting. You know what? I feel like I've seen some old clips of what wrestling used to be like, or the WWE stuff used to be like back in the day, and some of those things I've seen just will not fly today. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'll be very curious to see what kind of stuff you guys would love watching, especially if this is very true. If you can share some insight on that, because I've never been much of a WWE person, other than I used to play a game called SmackDown vs. Raw on my PlayStation 2 or 3. Nah, I was playing on my PlayStation 3, so yeah, there you go. I mean, that's the earliest recollection I have of WWE.
Savage and the beautiful Miss Elizabeth.
Yeah, I don't know about these.
MTV was an important part of the pop culture of this time. During the channel's initial rise in 1980's heyday, it helped to kickstart the careers of stars like Cyndi Lauper, Madonna, and even Michael Jackson.
I can imagine.
In those days, they actually played music videos, so you would have to sit through hours and hours of videos until they played the one you wanted.
Really? See, again, my attention span would not survive in this time period. I mean, obviously, if I teleported back, my attention span would be obviously, it'll be obvious how short it is, because everything happened back like a lot slower back in the day. To me, I just turn on my screen and go on YouTube and find the exact video that I wanted instantly. But that's interesting as well. Like what, and the MTV stuff was, I feel like I did a reaction to Video Killed the Radio Star, and people were saying that's like one of the first videos that showed up on there. I'm trying to jog my memory, but
videos until they played the one you wanted.
Alright. That's long though.
Another pivotal moment came in 1983 when Michael Jackson did the Moonwalk for the first time while singing Billie Jean, and it became his signature move. From that moment on, every kid in the United States decided they wanted to practice that backward glide, which looked deceptively easy when Michael Jackson did it.
That was what prime Michael Jackson, man, before, you know, all the documentaries started to come out, you know? Awkward.
When Michael Jackson did it.
The Moonwalk Michael Jackson. Shout out to Jason Salmon.
To look cool in school, middle and high schoolers across the country began tight-rolling their jeans, growing out their mullet, and teasing their bangs to the sky with a can of Aquanet hairspray.
Wow.
These same kids would also spend hours listening to the radio and waiting for the local station to play their favorite song.
Yo, these hairstyles are just different, man. Look, I know that's just someone's mom, man. These girls are literally someone's Gen X parents, or like, you know what I'm saying? This is what they were doing back in the days, the good old days, man, when they were growing up. That's actually jokes. Look at, that's different, man. That's different. So much enthusiasm on the looks, bright colors. People just look so much more like enjoying life back then in terms of, I don't know. I feel like everyone's on their phone nowadays.
Hours listening to the radio and waiting for the local station to play their favorite song, all while resting one finger on the record button of the cassette player.
Right.
There was an art form to crafting the perfect mixtape, as there was only so much time on each side of the cassette. The Sony Walkman made listening to these tapes easy if you were on the go. Otherwise, they would be a gift for your significant other.
Oh, wait. So this Sony Walkman is you can transport that. It's portable. And then the mixtapes, I always get this mixed up. So mixtapes are the collection of songs. Hold up.
To crafting the perfect mixtape,
okay,
as there was only so much time on each side of the cassette.
Right.
The Sony Walkman made listening to these tapes easy if you were on the go. Otherwise,
okay, I've only just understood what a cassette tape is, man, because that stuff was confusing me. So you're telling me you play whatever you want to play, you record on a cassette tape, you have some squiggly windy thing that you wind whatever, and you only have a certain amount of time, and then you can have a bunch of cassette tapes together. They'll give you a mixtape. And then you put the mixtapes in your Sony Walkman. That's what I feel like I understand so far, which is a long way from how it started, because I only just figured out what a cassette tape was really yesterday. So if that doesn't put things in perspective, that's just like,
they would be a gift for your significant other. The California Raisins were a claymation blues band that not only graced commercials and animated specials.
And more time, I'm probably still butchering it. I probably definitely still got that wrong, but I feel like I'm getting closer to exactly what it was. And I'm sure you guys will flood me with comments basically explaining this. But
so much.
Imagine that.
The California Raisins were a claymation blues band that not only graced commercials and animated specials, but they also made it to toy stores and the fast food restaurant Hardee's.
That looks like
Not only could you get these collectible figures if you bought a cinnamon raisin biscuit from the drive-thru, but they also put them on lunchboxes, t-shirts,
wow,
comic books, and posters.
That literally looks like what's that toys thing with like Andy and Buzz Lightyear. What's it called again? Toy Story. I don't know why that took me so long to figure out. But yeah, these look like what? These look like these remind me of Toy Story.
Made it specials, but they also made it to toy stores and the fast food restaurant Hardee's. Not only could you get these collectible figures if you bought a cinnamon raisin biscuit from the drive-thru, but they also put them on lunchboxes, t-shirts, comic books, and posters.
That's cool. That's really cool.
The 1980s had arguably the most memorable sitcoms of any decade, with shows like Knight Rider, Punky Brewster, The Wonder Years, Alf, and The Cosby Show. But when it came to movies, there was nothing better than a John Hughes film. If you were a teenager during this time, you were able to relate to all of his flawed characters. Being a lovable loser like Ducky was an achievable goal. Or maybe you too wore your insecurities on your sleeve like the girl next door, Samantha Baker. Movies like The Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, and Pretty in Pink were so relatable for so many, and John Hughes was able to capture that period of time perfectly.
Okay. Yeah, man. I can't relate to any of that.
The fads and trends that were...
It looked interesting though. Like, if you guys want me to check it out, I could look into it. It looks interesting, man.
The fads and trends that were created during the 1980s are hard to beat. When we see them, we instantly recognize that they were part of a colorful decade that has started to make a comeback. These moments in time were for many the absolute best time to grow up. So let me know in the comments your own memories of the 1980s.
1980 fashion fads. You know what? I prefer the way people used to dress back in the good old days, man. Like, I would have loved to I would love to do like a 1980s themed like disco or something where just everyone dresses like Gen Zers dress up as 1980s people or typical 1980s and just see what it's like. I'm sure a bunch of parents would love to see that. I don't know, maybe I don't know, but it's to say this was interesting, man. This was again like I think I have not came across any of these things. Obviously this is 1980s stuff, so it's interesting to see. Like, it seems like, at least from my perspective, that a lot of these things probably just died down. They're like no longer trendy, or like these, California Raisins. I don't know if they're still around now, maybe in America somewhere, but I've never seen those before, and just like a bunch of other things. But that's interesting, man. The 1980s seemed to be a time, obviously, where technology and TVs especially started to really come into play, and games and all of that. So yeah, like obviously seeing this back, it doesn't make me feel as young, because some of these things are somewhat recognizable, but the cassette tape kind of throws me off a bit. Like, I'm trying to figure that thing out, but but yeah, guys, look, let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know if you thought a lot of these things are true. Did you miss out on anything? And of course, fill me in on some of the things I was curious about, please, guys. And guys, if you made this point, comment on any red hearts. I know who my real ones are. And of course, guys, look, I've been your boy JayFlex. This has been a tribute to the ones growing up in the 1980s, right? And for those of you guys who made this point, you guys have been absolutely wonderful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.